Hi everybody, it's Dave from Doctors of Running, and today we're going to be doing a head-to-head battle with the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 and the Hoka Mach 6. So both of these shoes are lightweight trainers, performance trainers, speed trainers, whatever we want to call them. So you could do a little bit of everything in these shoes, everything from daily training to workouts to even racing. They're meant to be that Swiss Army knife that can do a little bit of everything. Going through specifications, they're pretty similar, but there are some key differences. So I'm going to start off with the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. The Endorphin Speed 4 comes in at 36 millimeters of stack in the heel, 28 millimeters of stack in the forefoot. That's an 8 millimeter drop. It is 8.2 ounces, men's size 9, 233 grams, women's size 8, 7.2 ounces, and 206 grams. This uses the Power Run PB midsole, so PBA based, that we've seen in the other Endorphin Speed and Endorphin Pro models. The nylon plate is still there, so you get some rigidity, but you also get a little bit of flexibility as well. Hoka Mach 6 specifications. Now this retails at $139.95. My apologies, I didn't say this retails at $169.95. So the Hoka Mach 6 comes in at 7.4 ounces, 210 grams for men's size 9, and 6.7 ounces, 190 grams for women's size 8. Stack height for this is 37 in the heel and 32 in the forefoot. So that is a 5 millimeter drop. And this uses a compressed molded EVA that we've seen in previous shoes as well from the company. Despite that, it actually has pretty good bounce. There's no plate in this shoe, so this is definitely going to be more your neutral workhorse monster there for those types of things. When we look at the just general experience on the shoes, I'm going to start with the upper here. The Endorphin Speed 4 is definitely more accommodating. I'd say it's a little bit more comfortable. The mesh material is a little bit softer, the tongue is a little bit more airy, and there's just a little bit more room for swelling accommodations. So this could be a really nice shoe for long runs and long tempo runs and things like that. When we look at the fit of the Hoka Mach 6, this definitely has a little bit more of a streamlined fit to it. It's pretty snug. The volume is pretty low. I know some of the other people on DOR have had some length issues. I didn't feel that there was any length issues. I just felt that the volume was a little bit lower and the experience was snug throughout. You have a thin performance-like tongue in there. Everything about this just feels very performance-esque. And it really shows when you kind of put it through the paces. And I've taken both of these shoes on the track, and I will say that the Mach 6 really gets you onto that platform and gives you a good experience when you're cornering hard and things like that. That kind of takes us into the ride. So as far as the ride of the shoes, they do have different experiences. So this does feel like a PBA-based midsole. Doesn't feel quite as rocker as some of the other Endorphin Speeds have felt. It feels a little bit flatter up in the forefoot, more of a kind of a late stage rocker there. And there's a little bit of flexibility underfoot. I actually really liked that because it felt more forgiving from a transition standpoint. It didn't feel like I continue to fall forward and I could only run fast in the shoe. It felt like I can go slow, fast, and I actually kind of like a little bit of that flatter geometry for going like fast, where we're really turning over and trying to get it going. Traction underfoot, really good in the Endorphin Speed 4, this kind of lattice structure here and this grippy heel. There's a lot of texture to it, and it really does grip the ground, I think, really well. But you do get a very kind of a flatter feel to it, not in the sense of pop, but in the sense of geometry. Even though it does have that speed roll and there is a rocker, it's not quite as dramatic as some of the other ones that have come out. The heel at first can come off as a tiny bit clunky there, but once you get into rhythm, it feels pretty good, and it's just kind of a nice, smooth transitioning shoe. Kind of like middle of the row on everything there. It's not hyper rockered, it's not hyper flat, it's not super flexible, but it's not super stiff. So it's kind of that middle ground shoe that can do a little bit of everything pretty well. So I've actually really liked it for workouts. What I will say, I've also really liked the Hoka Mach 6. There's not really a wrong answer here between the two. It just depends on the experience that you want. If you are sensitive to plates, this doesn't have one. So that is something worth looking into. The Mach 6 is a little bit lighter. I do think that is noticeable when it is on foot. But it doesn't quite have the same snappiness to it. It feels almost like a traditional flat. I'm thinking kind of like your Asics Hyperspeed, like the older ones, or the Brooks T series, RIP. those kinds of shoes where it was kind of like this EVA, but it was cushioned for the time, and it just kind of felt like a more cushioned racing flat. And that's essentially what the Mach 6 feels like, with a little bit more foam and a little bit more weight. Like, so those shoes in those times were probably 5-6 ounces. This is about 7.4, so it's still really light by today's standards, especially with a lot of the shoes coming out. And I feel like that streamlined fit, and then you have good traction on this one too. Both these shoes have great traction. It just feels like you're very dialed in. It feels like a very natural transition through the forefoot. Heels beveled pretty hard when you come in and you land. It doesn't look like it on the video here, but the way it feels, it just feels like you really get pitched onto the bottom of your heel there pretty quick. Like you're on the midfoot, and then it's up to your forefoot to kind of do the rest of the work. So it feels like you're kind of forward all the time without feeling like you're being rocked forward all the time. You're just kind of on that midfoot and then flexing through the forefoot and popping off. So looking at like performance and what I like to use this shoe for, I feel like this is anything half marathon down. It does feel a little bit tight for me if I want to run 20 miles or so and use this as a long run shoe. I just don't know if I'll quite do that. But it's a really solid shoe if you're doing a workout that's under 13 miles. Not to say you can't do it, it just feels a little bit tight. Like I definitely start to feel it biting when it's on my foot for longer periods of time like that. With the Endorphin Speed 4, I feel like this one I can take the full marathon if I wanted to. Just different experiences. They both are lightweight, they're both responsive. For being an EVA midsole, this actually is pretty darn responsive, and I think they just give you slightly different experiences. And I'm happy they both have good traction. I feel like you can both work out on dirt and take it and do whatever you really want with both of these shoes. If you want kind of more that natural feeling, almost like Skechers Razor kind of esque feel to it, the Mach 6 is probably going to be closer to that in a modern day version. Whereas if you want more of that super shoe feel and kind of that training companion we're starting to see with a lot of the new racers coming out, the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 can give you that. So like I said, there's no wrong answers. Both of these shoes are probably going to be on the ballot when I'm coming down towards the end of the year and thinking about my best performance or lightweight trainers. These immediately hit it off with me, and they're both really good. So that's our head-to-head with the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 and Hoka Mach 6.